you very much, Olga, and thank you very much to the University of Krasnoyarsk to invite me here to present you some of the very current, very new findings, results of a new research project we are running in Düsseldorf in this last 2 years. I'm happy that this invitation gives me the opportunity to speak about some new research. In this new research, we are stressing the framework of social milieus, which allows a very direct link to the everyday life of people. This approach also allows a differentiation of social styles, of social lifestyles, of social groups, and it is based on the different values which people use as orientation in their daily life. This concept of target groups is a very popular tool in various fields of commercial marketing research. It is used in the fields of media research, product development, advertising, and political parties, and other fields. What we do in the last decade was to look on the field of education using this special framework. We are able to describe the interests and barriers in education, further education, religious offers, spiritual offers, and also we are now able, in the last 2 years we did this research, we are able to describe special educational needs, special educational barriers in the field for migrant families. Today, I will sketch a few key issues of parental education based on the very useful framework of social milieus from a current research project funded. It is funded by 2 German foundations, the Vodafone Foundation and the Mercator Foundation. I can also mention a few selected results of our research, but at the end of my presentation I will come to some interesting findings concerning the usage of internet and digital social media as Facebook for parental education. Let me start with a short explanation what is the meaning of the so-called social milieus, of the concept of social milieus. A milieu can be defined as a group of individuals who share a common set of core values and beliefs. These individuals tend to agree with one another on the basic realities of their everyday lives concerning work, leisure, relationships, aspirations, money, consumptions, as well as attitudes towards education, towards adult education, towards lifelong learning, towards digital education and other fields. Furthermore, these common attitudes promote similar behavior regarding, for example, which places they frequent, what they buy, what forms of educational offers they prefer, what kind of lectures, courses, etc. they attend, what institutes of education they prefer, how much money they are willing to spend on education, how they look on private education or other fields. Social milieus are an approach to outline and on systemizing attitudes, values, and lifestyles. The following, what I will present today, is based on the so-called sinus milieus. Sinus milieus are already developed in the late 70s by the German Market Research Institute Sinus, which is based in Heidelberg and now in Berlin too. Sinus milieus place the person and his environment at the center of investigation, thus enabling a concrete and comprehensive description of target groups, over and above the current socio-demographic description. Sinus milieus assemble people into groups who share a similar view and way of life. That is really important, that we here have a framework which intention is to take into account the everyday life of people, the everyday values of people, the everyday lifestyle of people, the everyday shared values, shared places, shared leisure activities, and so on. And this led to a framework which is figured out in this, so we call it in Germany the potato figure, because it's not a straight figure as other mathematic figures which are normally used in social demographic or sociological research. We call it the potato graphic because it's real life, and real life is not as mathematic systems or as mathematic figures. It looks more irregular. There are more or less different lines and different places where they share common values. So this is the model of the German society. It comprises now 10 different milieus. And the real important thing is that people differ both in their values and in their social background. This means you can see that this figure shows, on the one hand, the different values on the one scale, and on the other scale, from lower levels to higher levels, it shows the different social demographic status. So the different incomes, for example, the different levels of education, the different status of their vocation, of their income, and so it is a field which is based on a two-dimension figure. One can observe a rough ordering of this social milieu along this vertical and horizontal axis. The higher the milieu is positioned in social space, the higher the corresponding traditional criteria of social positioning, such as education, income, job status. The further the milieu is positioned to the right along the horizontal axis, the more modern its core values. For example, we speak of the traditional and the established conservatives as being more traditional milieus, while on the other hand, we have the more modern or rather hedonistic milieus, the so-called higher achievers or escapists. And on this strategic map, we call it a strategic mapping of the society, you can position everything which is important in life. You can position products, you can position brands, you can position specific media usage, you can also position values concerning education. You can position aspirations concerning education. You can position barriers concerning education. And this is what we try to do in our research project. Before I come to the more concrete findings of our project, I will just give you a short outline that this model is invented, you can say, in Germany, but it is available now for very much countries all over the world. Here you see the 28 countries which are now comprised by a meta-milieu model, by a milieu model which is similar to the German, but it takes into account the different and the special background, the special tradition of every country. So we have now models for United States, for Canada, for Brazil, even for China and Australia, for mostly all European countries, and also there is a special model figured out in the last years for Russian too. Unfortunately, today I can't speak about the Russian model because there we are not doing any research at the current time, but maybe in future we can do research together on this, based on this framework and based and focusing on the topic I will stress today, the topic of migration, population and the needs of migrations in the field of education. Here you see, here you see the framework, the figure with horizontal and with vertical axis, and with the different milieus which are described for the Eastern European and especially for the Russian society. Only to give you a short overview that there is a model also for maybe for your society. In the concrete potato figure, as we call it, for Russian society looks like that. And you see here the different groups of people from the proletarized popular on the left-hand side up to the alternative life on the right-hand side, and in the higher levels of class differentiation, or you see the success and career-oriented, and you see the so-called golden Russians, and maybe some of you tend to become a member of one of these higher level milieus in the future or even in the current time. I'll now come a little more concrete to our own research project. The aim of this project we are running in the last 2 years is a milieu-specific assessment of the attitudes towards education, interest, barriers, especially for the people with a migrational background. We want to know how are they looking on parental education, what are their expectations, which formats, do we need courses like school courses, or do we need more open consulting, or do we need internet-based support offers? What is their need? And the distinction between other research projects, the distinction between our research project and others is that we don't want to follow a deficit-oriented approach, but we want to focus upon chances and resources. I have to say maybe a few words to the background of the topic of migration. I think the topic of migration is also becoming a big topic in the Russian society in the last years too. In Germany we have this topic since 30, 40 years, since the so-called Gastarbeiter are coming to Germany 50 years ago. Today we have a big number of people coming as migrants to Germany. If you count them, if you count the people in Germany, there are different ways of counting them. For example, you can count foreign people only by the way you look in their passport. Do they have a German passport or do they not have a German passport? So if you count this, then you see 10% of the people living in Germany don't have a German passport. So they are foreigners, as you can say. They have a foreign citizenship. They have not a German citizenship. But if you don't count the passports, but if you count people who have foreign heritage, who have foreign traditions, who have parents from other countries, then you count 20%. 20% of the German people today have a migrational background, as we say, have 20% migrational background. And if you look on the younger population, if you look on students, pupils, we see that even more percent, that 30%, and in some places, in some cities, in some suburbs, you find 50%, 60%, 90% of pupils in classes, of students in classes who have migrational backgrounds. So we have a big challenge for the educational system to cope with this new challenge, of so many people, so many pupils who don't have a German background, who have a migrational background, and they have special problems, they have special resources, but they also have special barriers. And the thing we should mention, we should take into account is that in Germany we have the situation that research shows that the school performance of migrants are compared with German pupils very low. There are low levels of achievement, and for a long time no concern is taken about their education. And if there is research and discussions about this topic, it is mainly based on the perception of migrant pupils, migrant students as a problem, as less educated, as less employable, as less needful for German society. And now, the last years, there is a change of paradigms. We nowadays focus more on the potentials, on the resources of migrants, and not only on the problems. Namely, to mention some of these special resources, research has found that they have a strong desire, a strong eagerness for social mobility, for social achievement, to create a better future for themselves and especially for their children. And second, we can mention they have a high flexibility and they have a high competence in cultural diversity. So this is the background of our research, of the aims I have already described, and I think this is necessary to know this situation of the research in Germany. What we did in concrete is a qualitative and a quantitative way of research. We have problem-centered, in-depth interviews. We have led 120 interviews with German people with migrational background, and we have 1,700 interviews on the telephone, the so-called computer-assisted telephone interviews, 1,700 interviews which are led with people with migrational background, and the duration was about 30 minutes, and it is already fulfilled. We are at the end, and now we are looking to analyze and to interpret our results. This is an overview to give a first impression of the variety of people which are called in Germany the people with migrant backgrounds. It shows you that there are very traditional views, very traditional furnitures, very traditional insights into the flats, into the houses of people, and also very modern, very maybe also future-oriented ways of living. This is the map, the so-called potato graphic for the migration, only for the migration people in Germany. It's a little bit different from the figure for the whole German population. Here you see only the migration people situated also in this two-axis system with core values on the horizontal axis and with class or income rates on the vertical axis. I can't give you an outline of all these 8 different milieus today, but I will give you some hints for 2 selected milieus and to show you at least that we try to make it better for you. Here is the Russian translation of these labels of the 8 different migrant milieus for Germany. It's the German situation which is described by these different groups of people which we suppose to be like-minded, to have similar interests, to have similar educational experiences and similar educational aspirations. This is an example of the so-called adaptive bourgeois milieu. It comprises 16% of migrants in Germany, and we have a typical citation from one of our interviews. This is a very family-oriented milieu, and so a typical citation is, family, it was really matters to me. Definitely, family has the highest priority for me. This is not the daughter who is saying this, but the mother of this young girl is saying this in an interview. This milieu comprises the pragmatic, modern center of people with a migrational background, which strives for social inclusion and a harmonious life with regulated conditions within. They strive for security, for financial security especially, for a higher quality of life, for convenience, for a cozy and harmonic home. They are, from their core values, there's a high level of optimism, of satisfaction. They don't want to change everything, they want to cope with reality. Usually they are satisfied with their life. They are willing to adapt into the German society. They don't want to be outsiders, they want to be to live in the center of society, and they share the values which are in the core of the German society, as we have success, advancement, establishment, pragmatism, and an economic way of life. You see the family-centered and children-centered way of living also in the flats, in the apartments, in the houses of the people. The life of the children and the education of the children has a very high influence in their thinking and in their everyday life, and they try to adopt the new style of furniture, the new style of houses, and of the way to live in their flats and apartments. If we look on the educational aspirations, we see a very important role has the children should have a better life. People from this milieu often have bad experiences with the German school system, bad experiences with their own school careers, and they think their children should have a better life and should have better educational support. For them it is important not only to learn to live in Germany, but also to learn everything about the German culture. But they also think it's necessary to know something about their own heritage, about their own country, where they are coming from, for example, Turkey or Russia or former Yugoslavia. So they have to learn about both cultures, the new culture and the culture from origin. Their aim is often higher educational achievements, but they want to achieve it without pressure, without any too heavy pressure on their children. And the parents want to support their children as best as possible, and they are willing to inform themselves about the German educational system. I now come to another milieu. This was the harmony-oriented milieu, and now we are in the cosmopolitan, the intellectual cosmopolitan milieu, which comprises 11% of migrants in Germany. And here we have a more sovereign, a higher level of educational reflections, a higher level of criticism of the educational system, and a special way of thinking on the future of their children. And we also have here a typical citation, which is, so a good education for children means to me that every single child has the opportunity, the chance, to be encouraged in order to follow its own individual abilities, resources and potentials. It's mentioned its own, not of everybody else, but of its own individual abilities and resources. That can, of course, apply to many different levels, such as music, theatres, natural sciences and sport. But what is most important is that all these resources need to be discovered rather than taught in a deficit-oriented approach. So they have also already a critical approach. They say resources in their children should be discovered, should not be delivered by educational offers or educational pressure. They should be discovered, and you should let the children grow in their own style, in their own way, with their own special abilities. So we can say this milieu is well informed. It strives for self-fulfillment more than for acceptance or more than for integration. It strives for self-fulfillment. Typical are cosmopolitan, tolerant attitude and diverse intellectual interests. They often live in a quite international way, in a quite cosmopolitan politician attitude. For them, the development of personality, of creativity, of emancipation, of awareness, all these things are very important for their life and for their understanding of themselves. They also think that international tolerance, peacefulness, international solidarity are important values. They think equal opportunities, justice, social responsibility should be delivered by people, and they also are the so-called sustainable, they stick to a sustainable lifestyle, so an intact environment is important for them. So you can say it's a very self-confident and optimistic towards success milieu on a very high level. It is based already on a high level of knowledge and of a high level of mostly of income, or more or less also of income. Some typical insights into the living, everyday living in there. These are pictures taken during our research in families living in this intellectual cosmopolitan milieu in these last years in Düsseldorf, in Berlin. It looks like that. If we go into the educational aspirations and what they desire for their children, there's another very typical citation. I wish for my son to stay himself, maybe becoming a hairdresser or becoming a lawyer. So this is a very sovereign, a very well-informed and a very, you can say, high-level answer. May it be becoming a hairdresser or becoming a lawyer, I really don't mind. Maybe they hope it would be a lawyer and not a hairdresser, but they accept both. They say it's most important is that the children find their own way for their own life. So educational is seen as self-fulfillment. It is necessary to foster a child's personal nature and talents, and this ranges from mathematics but also over to cultural education and ecological skills. It is necessary to say that not the school performance is very necessary for them, not the achievements from school, but happiness. Happiness, to have children which are lucky, this is the most important thing what they are thinking they should deliver to their children. Children should not be forced into a system. They should be raised independent of pressure and expectations. University studies of children is seen as self-evident, but, of course, without pressure. So if we now try to summarize, to sum up the different milieus and their different views, their different expectations, their different experiences to education, we try to label the fields where the milieus they share common interests or common perspectives. For example, we have a striving for self-fulfillment in the higher milieus. We have a striving for freedom, especially on the right-hand side of the more modern, more hedonistic milieus. The most important thing for having fun, you can see on the hedonistic, subcultural milieu. The main importance of assimilation, of acceptance, of integration, of belonging is figured out by the label belonging for the adaptive bourgeois milieu. We also have social rise or social mobility as very important for the status-oriented, and the need of security, of safetiness in the more traditional migrant milieus. I now want to look on some results of our quantitative interviews with our 1,700 interviewers, 1,700 people which are interviewed, and we asked them what they think about the necessity of, for example, intercultural competences. Is it important or is it not important to have this in German schools? And we secondly asked them what their own experiences are. So we have two ways of questioning. We asked them if these labels you see, these items you see on the left-hand side, is it important? And we asked in the second question, how are your own experiences? And the first thing you can see in this figure is that there are big differences between the expectations, for example, of intercultural competences of teachers, in school. 92% say it is very important that teachers know something, for example, about Muslim people, about traditions in other countries, but only 60% say we have this experience in our school. We have this experience with our children. So there's a lack of 30% between expectations and the current status quo. There are even higher differences, for example, 66% differences between, if you ask for consultation in regard to sponsoring and grant programs, especially for migrants. Sponsoring and grant programs, especially for migrants, 86% say it is very important to have this information, but only 20% say we got it already. So there's a lack of 66% which have not seen this information in their own school careers or in the school careers of their 5 minutes. Okay. So what I want to say is we have a big difference, and we have a lot of things to do to make education system in Germany better, to improve it, to hit more the expectations of people from foreign countries or people with migrational backgrounds. And one of the ways we think which should be done in future is to improve the parental education, the information and the support for parents, because parents have a very important role in the school life of their children. And here you can see the different milieus with their different interests in parental education. You can see the more modern the milieus are, the more they are interested in offers in parental education. And we ask also which topics should be stressed, should be focused in offers for parental educations. There are different offers which we will test in the future. Possibilities to study in German, detailed information, the passes for children through the educational system, and so on. To sum up these findings, we can say that cultural diversity is seen as an enrichment. Educational opportunities in Germany are regarded as a problem. A symptom of this is that many migrants want their children to attend a school with little or with no migrants. We also see the central importance of staff, of educational opportunities, and of barriers. And we see that there has been in the last years, in the past, little support for migrants by their own parents, because there is a lack of information, a lack of education, and also language barriers and money barriers. We also can say that there are high educational aspirations. It's not the case that migrant people don't want education. They want it very strong, but they don't succeed to manage how they can help their children, how they can support their children. So there is a lot of interest also for parental education. For example, in regard to the German educational system and to the role of parents in the educational system. But in what type of information, what type of offers should be developed in the future? And what we think what is necessary is a mix of both, of events in school and also support of internet-based information systems. And this is what I want to point out in the last 2 minutes.
Yes, last 2 minutes.
This is what we asked also in our investigation. How is the media usage of migrants? And we see television is the most important, but also we see that the use of social media is about 1/3 of the people, they use social media such as Facebook or Twitter. It's mentioned on the last item here. And this is, again, internet is not the most important thing in media usage for migrants in Germany. Even today, television is most important. But if we look on the development in the last years, which is figured out here, we can see the highest rates of increasing levels in internet usage. You see on the last figures here, you see a high increase from 22 to 39%, for example, on all age groups, and even more in the younger population of migrants. It is an increasing number from 38 to 59%. 59% who use the internet in everyday life. So we have to focus on the usage of internet, digital information system, and the most important what we can find is social networks. Social networks, and the next is search engines, but social networks such as Facebook are even of more importance today than, for example, Google. And this is, I think, it's an interesting hint for the future of educational offers, to take into account that there is a lot of traffic, a lot of interest in these social networks, especially to mention Facebook. We are asking ourselves, what are the reasons why migrants use more than German people, even more than German people? They use more Facebook. We asked us, what is the reason for this finding? And we have some hypotheses in regard to the Facebook affinity of migrants. And one is that maybe the transnational relationships, the transnational communication from people in one country to the other country. One part of the family is living in Germany, the other part of the family is living in Turkey, or is living in Bosnia, or is living in Russia. And so they can communicate through Facebook, despite the distance. Everyone can stay informed at any time and anywhere. And the last thing I have to mention is that what we also find is that especially the Turkish people in Germany, we have a lot of Turkish people in Germany, about 2 million. The most important, one of the most important things they say to the German TV programs is that they think it is very cold. There is a lack of emotions. And in Facebook, on the other hand, there is a possibility of expressing your emotions. Emotions can be very easily expressed in Facebook, and you can post baby photos, you can post wedding photographs, you can post emoticons. So the emotional side of communication is much more, is much better on this social media, and therefore this is what I want to say as a last sentence. It is very useful for the future of educational offers to take into account this perspective, social media as supporting system for educational offers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. BARZ.